Welcome back to the Target Gender Equality Live event. Over the past few years, we've asked you to share, over the past few hours, we ask you to share what you have learned so far, what you see as ambitious actions for gender equality. Here is what we have heard so far. When asked what is the most significant action to increase women's advancement and leadership in the workplace, the majority of you ask for increased skills, training, role models, and professional development opportunities. Very important to add tangible skills. Further, when asked what steps is your organization taking to engage and support women-led businesses and entrepreneurs, the top answers were inclusive procurement, policy programs, and skills development and capacity building support. So it seems that it's great to see that the actions needed are aligned with the actions being taken by your organizations. We love hearing from you. Keep adding your comments, please, in that chat, and remember to continue the conversation on social media using Target Gender Equality. We have over 4,000 attendees online today. Many of you are young professionals and emerging leaders in your field. We turn now to hear from some amazing young leaders as they share their visions for an equitable and inclusive future workforce and learn more about the gender-forward policies they took for and build into their companies. I will hand it over to Salam Al-Nukta, the founder and CEO of Changemakers, a startup in Syria which aims to close the gender gap in STEM. Salam is a member of the Generation Equality Youth Task Force and the startup enthusiast based in the Netherlands with a passion for being immediate and strategic value-added projects focusing on women empowerment and communities' prosperity. Salam, over to you.
Thank you so much, Lydia, and thank you for this introduction. Of course, it's an amazing pleasure to be here with you amongst other inspirational change makers and youth leaders who are going to take us during these the next half an hour through their journeys, and of course tell us how one way or another they contributed to making gender equality a reality. So indeed, my name is Salam Al-Nukta, and I'm connecting with you from the Netherlands, but originally I'm from Syria, and I wear different hats, but today I'm a member of Generation Equality Youth Task Force and the founder of Changemakers. Actually, the world has nearly 40% of its population of young people under the age of 24. In other countries like Benin, where Jerry, one of our amazing panelists, the population of people under the age of 18 can go up to 50%. The young people today play a very important role and a key role actually in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, including gender equality. However, during the World Economic Forum, achieving gender equality takes us 257 years. That's not a little number. And of course, it surprises me as much as it does to you. Today's young people are contributing their innovations, bringing up business ideas, social ideas to make this a reality. But today, we will hear from our panelists who are going to introduce themselves. So I would love to ask you to please tell us your name, what you do, where you do it, and of course, why you're happy to be here with us and share with us your journeys. And to make things a little bit more personal, and of course to get to know you more, I would like to hear from you one personal fun fact. So not a fact from work, not about what you do, but very personal and funny. So that's a challenge I give to you, and I nominate Rebecca to go first.
Hi, Salam and everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for this invitation. And well, my name is Rebecca. I'm from Brazil, based in São Paulo, and I work at Brazil Stock Exchange, which I love, B3. And I'm also a young SDG innovator. I'm very enthusiastic about my work, especially working with sustainability at B3, because I really love what I do. And that's why I'm here to encourage everyone who's watching us to do the same. It's really possible to work where you love and do what you love. Sometimes can be terrifying, just like skydive, which I love. Kind of, it's a fun fact of me. I can't separate my personal life to my work life, but it's amazing because once you jump, the free falling and the amazing view worth it every second, just like our jobs. So thank you so much, and I nominate Jerry.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be with you today. My name is Jerry AZILINON. I'm Beninese, but I live in Senegal. They are both West African countries. I'm a He4She ambassador. As you might know, He4She is a solidarity campaign launched by UN Women that engage men and boys in the fight for gender equality and women's rights. And I'm also the coordinator of the Doeno movement, which raises awareness on gender issues and provides victim assistance, among others. For me, it's important to bring the equality issues and to address it in all grounds. That's why I'm here today. And a fun fact about me is that I'm leading a female soccer team named Dakar Sacré Queen, but I haven't had a great playing career, so I don't know if I'm a legitimate coach. And I will nominate Anja to go after me.
Thank you, Jerry. And hi, everyone. It's also a pleasure for me to be here with you today. And I'm dialing in from Switzerland today. I'm originally from Germany, and I work at the Project Management Institute, where I lead the youth engagement strategy. Besides doing that, I'm also the champion for the Young SDG program at the Project Management Institute, and try to drive the positive impact forward that young people can bring towards the advancement of the SDGs. And it's my pleasure to be here today because I truly believe it's time that we think differently about young people and the contributions that they can make, and what we as society overall have to gain when we embrace young people alongside everybody else in working towards positive change. A little fun fact about myself: when I'm not at work, not behind the laptop, I tend to be out in cold and hostile places, mountaineering or going on polar expeditions. So that would be my other part of the life. And I'm happy to hand over to Sid to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sid AMALEAN, and I am from a company called MAS Holdings, and I lead sustainable business for MAS Holdings. So MAS is an apparel company, so we do everything from design, develop, and manufacture clothing for many of the large brands that you would have heard of. And I think from my perspective, you know, the apparel manufacturing industry is very much an industry that is that has a large female workforce. And so from our perspective, it's really important for us to understand how we can empower women and also really understand how we can provide flexibility both for men and women at the workplace. And that's really what I'm excited to talk to you about today. In terms of a fun fact, personally, I'm also very interested in motor racing, and that's a personal passion of mine. And with that, I'll hand it back to Salam to take us forward.
Thank you so much, Sid, and it was absolutely a pleasure to get to know you, more, of course, and learn about your fun facts, skydiving, so climbing mountains. So I think we also have some talents here. Now I'd like the audience to actually watch a video with us presented by Celeste from Italy, who shares her experience in facing difficulties finding a job despite her long academic experience and internships. So let's watch that together.
Hi, I'm Celeste from Italy. I'm a young professional currently studying my second master's degree in gender and development. I've worked with NGOs, intergovernmental organizations, and think tanks. Something that I have experienced is the difficulty to access entry-level positions in international organizations, despite having completed numerous training programs in the same field of work. In fact, while these positions generally require at least 2 years of professional experience, internships and traineeships are not counted as such. Unpaid internships not only reproduce inequalities, but also reduce the value of the intern's work in the eyes of future employers. So young graduates who can afford it often hop from internship to internship until they meet someone that takes a chance on them, while those who cannot afford unpaid work are forced instead to look elsewhere, having to give up their dreams. I wonder if employers at universities could join forces to ensure that graduates are equipped with valuable practical skills that match job market demands. And finally, I'd like to invite employers to increase their recognition of training programs as qualifying professional experiences. Thank you.
What a strong message from Celeste, and I absolutely agree with her. Actually, the importance of hard and soft skills has been a debate, of course not a debate, but a conversation on how important it is for young people. And throughout my experience founding actually change makers, I really found out that young people are always thirsty to learn more, but there are little resources. So for example, change makers provided tech-based skills, and when young people were provided with that, they thrived as innovators and idea creators. Anya, actually, I would like to hear more from you, speaking from your experience, because you mentioned that you work with the Project Management Institute. So how do you reflect on that, and especially the future of work?
Well, thank you. And yeah, indeed, at the Project Management Institute, we are witnessing or recognizing that the world is evolving rapidly, disrupted by major shifts and megatrends that result in an increasingly projectized economy and driving the need for continuous learning and development. And so in consequence of that, we see a widening skill gap, especially for graduates, as many schools and academic institutions struggle to keep up with the pace of that change. Just think of the average lifespan of a bachelor's degree these days. And to close that skill gap, it is increasingly important for young graduates, emerging professionals, to foster continuous learning and to invest in professional training, development, and certifications to prove that they have what it takes when nobody believes them because it lacks the track record of experience. And also recruiters, on the contrary, must increasingly recognize that there's more value in soft skills and transferable skills than in those hard skills and experiences because of all that change that is happening that requires that constant influx of new learning and new development. However, depending on the industry and organization, it does take longer here and there before that mindset shift is really, permeating the whole process. And so I really urge more organizations to start thinking about the contribution that they need to value and to give people the chance to close that skill gap. Sid, what do you think from your experience?
Yeah, thanks, Anja. I think, similarly from our side, from an MAS point of view, one of the things that we've done from a company perspective is really try to see how we can partner with universities in the locations where we are. to look at providing more than just an internship experience. So one of the things that I'll share very briefly that we did was something called MAS Awards. And so that was aimed at selecting the best students out of the universities and giving them a project to do for and with MAS. And upon completing that project, the students with the winning projects from each university are then hired at MAS as permanent employees. Of course, the objective of that program is to expose undergraduates to the expectations and the standards of the corporate sector right from the outset, and also, of course, to encourage students to become more well-rounded, not just thinking about academics, but also really understanding all facets of application of what they're learning. So that's just a brief of some of the things that even other companies can do relatively easily and fairly inexpensively as well to really engage workforce and then bring them back into an organization as well. But I'd love to hear actually from you, Rebecca, because I know you have some personal experience in the space, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and your personal journey as well.
Thank you, Sid. Well, actually, my journey started with my father being my first references. He used to work in the financial market. So I grew up with him telling me the importance to plan my week on Sundays, for example, reading newspapers and have a lot of friends because network matters. And I believe these three things open and still open a lot of doors for me. So I would like to share. Well, first one, networking. A friend of mine, Otavio, forwarded my curriculum for B3, and now it's 8 years and counting. So that's the meaning of networking for me. And during this time at B3, I had and I have amazing friends who teach me, who support me. And one of them that I have to mention here is Luisa. It's a friend of mine that is friend, and we work together. So networking is very important. Planning. The first started with planning my week on Sundays, as my father likes to. And then I understood the importance of it, because planning is something that you can do not only with your family, but also with your time during during university work and work-life balance, I believe. And reading newspaper is something that is kind of obvious to everyone here, but you must be prepared to everything. Sometimes a shaking hand conversation will define your next step. So for me, this is something that it kind of mantra that I really like to really focus on me, and helped me a lot during my journey. It's something that helps me until today. But I know Jerry also has amazing personal experience working with women as a trainer, as a female soccer team. So I'd like to hear from him too.
Yeah, so I said during an intervention on a radio station that if there are fewer women in certain sector of activities because they do not have the same access opportunities as boys. And it starts at a young age because girls are not exposed to the same future prospect as boys, and their field of vision and therefore of possibility and dream is often limited. And unfortunately, in many regions of the African continent, when parents have to choose to ensure a professional future for one of their children, they automatically bet on the boy, even if he's the least performing at school. And this is the start of a long series of injustice. What we are doing with the Duena movement is to make the private and public sector accountable for the role they must play on equality issues. And during the 16 days of activism, for example, we associate them with our campaign and encourage them to launch initiatives that go in this direction also. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you guys. Salam, I give you back the floor.
Thank you so much. Very inspiring. Thank you actually very much for highlighting the combination of skills needed. And I think what I also want to stress is actually the non-traditional and the traditional education pathways. So you briefly touched upon that, and I think it's also very important. I think it's now a a great moment actually to hear what Maria has to say from Argentina, and especially about the lack of female role models. Rebecca, you mentioned in finance, your father was kind of your role model or your mentor. Unfortunately, we don't have enough female role models. So let's hear from Maria.
My name is Mary Sirocco. I'm the founder and CFO of Settle Network. Settle Network is a blockchain infrastructure company focused on cross-border payments and remittance. During my career, I've encountered the challenge of finding female role models multiple times, and especially female role models in leadership positions. During my career in the finance industry, I have encountered that it is even harder to find female mentors than it is to find female role models. Now that I work as a founder, I still find it hard to meet other female founders. However, with the help of many venture capital funds who are actively investing in female founders and organizations who are actively promoting women leadership, I believe this culture is changing.
Yeah, it's very nice what Maria mentioned about the difficulty of finding or meeting other female founders, and that makes a wonderful transition actually to our next topic, entrepreneurship. Being an entrepreneur myself actually exposed me to a lot of challenges, but also wonderful experiences. And there's something that I would like to call actually the female challenge combo. And that's the challenges that a female actually faces, and that consists of all the challenges and difficulties a regular entrepreneur faces, topped up with a special and uniquely curated set of challenges just based on her gender. I wrote an article on LinkedIn, and I would love to invite you all to read it. Because I would love to hear from Rebecca, actually, actually, Rebecca, I would love to hear from your perspective, and especially based on your experience in mentorship, in Brazil.
Well, for sure, Salam. Well, actually, it's a funny story because it all started with me planning my second job. Once I realized in Brazil, only 20% of the workforce in tech are female. And the scenario at B3, my company, is not different. Like actually, less than a half of our workforce comes from IT teams, and over these teams, around 20% is composed by women, and only 4% has women in leadership. So it really shocks me. And I was starting to plan like an app where I could connect women leaders with young professionals. But when I heard about the Young SDG Innovators Program, which United Nations launched it, I had no doubt to create it for B3. So I talked with two colleagues of mine, which I very admire, Ana Carolina and Isabella, who works at B3 as well. And we reshaped the idea of the program so it could fit for our company. Example, invited men to be mentors. And we had the amazing support of our sponsor at the time, Ana Buchain. And after a gap analysis that we did, we understood that women at B3 were getting stuck at the entry level, and few of them were becoming leaders. So to fix this, we created this mentorship program to women to allow them to reflect about her self-perception, to break free all those stereotypes. It's important to say that we created a guideline to support mentors and mentees during this process, which I can share if you like it, of course. And we're going to run the first pilot this year. So my wish is that the pilot becomes our program, and we can share with our listed companies so we can raise awareness not only in Brazil, but also to our listed company and be the role model for other countries. Now I would like to nominate to Jerry because I think he has a great initiatives as well.
Yeah. Yes, so thank you, Rebecca. And as I mentioned before, I'm leading a female soccer team. And since my team trains in the largest non-professional sport complex in the country, and I want to say that just after the call, I have to join them because we have a training in 1 hour. So it's recurrent to find men's team playing at the same time as us. And what is really funny is to see their reaction when the ladies are playing and put on good technical gesture. And they're always comparing them to male football player as if there wasn't good professional women performing on football. And for me, it's sometimes funny, but for me, it's also sad at the same time because certain sports such as football have this in common with other disciplines such as mechanics and certain sectors of the science, where there are not enough women. And the few who are present there are obliged to do 3 times more than the average to deserve their consideration and their place because they are pioneers. And it's something they always do wonderfully. And there's a movie I watched last year named Hidden Figures. And I think it's a movie that I recommend a lot because for me, it portrays this sad reality very well. Anjad, I'm sure you have a personal experience of taking initiative that you want to share with us.
That's true. Thank you, Jerry. And yeah, with that sad reality, I do have to say from personal experience, I did witness myself how few female role models there are. I started in technology, 2,500 people, less than 10% women quota. However, I decided for myself, why should I make myself dependent on role models and female role models in specific? Instead, why don't I become my own role model and thus perhaps also become one for others? So in my expedition life, I have mentioned earlier, I tend to go and climb high mountains, and eventually I also went on a very big polar expedition, so big that it even broke boundaries for male standards. And I decided I put it under the claim, not bad for a girl, to really provoke that thought that we are so caught up in stereotypes and preconceptions and what we think is good for the one or bad for the other, or the norm or the expectation. And with that, I wanted to really break through those stereotypes and make people aware of the fact that they don't need to be limited by what we think or attribute to certain types of people or certain types of gender or other qualities, and instead be free and be what we want to be. But yeah, handing over to Sid, because I think you've got some points to make also again on the topic of mentorship that Rebecca mentioned earlier, right?
Yeah, that's right. And it's definitely inspirational to hear you talking about, the way that you've approached this. But yeah, I mean, to Rebecca's point earlier, you spoke about 4% women in leadership. The sad truth is even at MAS, unfortunately, there is a gap in representation in leadership at the moment as well. And it's something that we have a vision of equating in the future. But right now, there is definitely a gap. And, one of the things that we also understand is we have a lot of development programs for our talent, formal coaching programs, and all of that. But one of the things that we launched in 2019 was a focused mentorship and sponsorship program. This is something that was identified because it was important for us to understand the specific challenges faced by women in the workplace, which you guys have already raised on this panel. And most importantly, to have the leaders dedicated to supporting and motivating female talent. And so mentorship programs are something that it really, like you were talking about, helps to build networks. It also breaks some of the biases that women themselves might carry. And it means that, we as leaders of the organization are also focused on developing female talent as well. And so with that, what I'll do is I'll hand it back to Salam to maybe wrap things up and take us into the next section.
Thank you, Sid. Absolutely. And I would just like to make one comment. Actually, Anya, I love your approach. If you don't find a role model, just be one. This is not just an inspiration, but also an invitation to take action. So that's something very valuable for our audience. Now, before we move to the other topic, and actually speaking about mentorship and stereotypes and social norms, I would like to invite you to watch a video by Jacqueline from Indonesia, who speaks about societal expectations and how our societies actually put a lot of pressure on us, and especially in regard of balancing work and life. So let's hear from her about her balancing her law career with her family.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline and I'm from Indonesia. I work as an attorney in the legal industry. One of the things that I've encountered many times in my career is this expectation of the society for women to have a career, but also to become the main caretaker of a family. Personally, I've always wanted to become a diplomat ever since I was 15, but my country has this policy where a diplomat shouldn't have a foreign spouse. So when I decided to get married to a foreigner, well, I realized that people kind of just expected me to give up on my dreams. Nobody ever thought of asking my spouse to even consider taking up a new citizenship or moving over to my home country. Everyone kind of took it as a given that I would give on my career and just follow my husband around. While I didn't regret having to switch career and actually fell in love with my new career as an attorney, I realized this only happened because I was a girl, but not two men.
Hi, my name is Corey, and I'm from the United States. I work in the construction industry. One thing that I have noticed is that a lot of my male colleagues are not taking advantage of paternity leave policies, even if they exist on paper. This is most likely because of negative gender norms in my male-dominated industry. I'm wondering how things will play out in practice once I become a father, and if there's any incentives companies can provide in order for men to support their family and take their leave. Have you encountered this issue in the workplace? What steps would you have companies take to tackle and encourage men across industry to take their paternal leave?
I think we just listened to two wonderful stories. Corey, I don't want him to present his video without an introduction, so I'm going to make it now. Well, he's from the United States, and of course you listen to his story. Also, for me, when I came to the Netherlands, it's really surprised me that the paternity leave actually in the Netherlands is quite short. And usually when a family celebrates a new baby, everyone expects the mom to stay at home, to take care of the baby, to rest. And of course, to form this kind of bond with the baby. But what about the father? Sid, I would like to listen from you because I think you are one of the stars of this conversation, leading policies and introducing incentives. So what do you have to share with us?
Yeah, well, I think from our perspective, there's something that Jacqueline was talking about as well, which is, cultural norms. And there are different cultural norms in different parts of the world. And certainly, like you mentioned, in our part of the world, there is that cultural norm in the society at large that, women women are sort of more responsible than men to take care of the family. And that's really something that we are actively trying to understand what we can do to change that perception. So especially when it comes to paternity leave in Sri Lanka, there is actually no law that says that you need to have paternity leave at all. So it's actually 0 days here. But we've implemented paternity leave, and to really answer Corey's question in terms of, what could we do to incentivize? I think one is to make it clear that paternity leave does exist in your company, and to implement it, and to have paternity leave for a minimum of, at least, 1 to 2 weeks, ideally longer. But I think it also is a leadership mentality. It's really important for the senior leaders in the organization when they're in a situation where they have to take, or they have the opportunity to take paternity leave, it's important that they do take paternity leave. And also when you see others in your organization as well, to really encourage and set the example, and to really push your team members and push your colleagues to take paternity leave as well. In terms of and so at MAS, we also, more than just paternity leave and maternity leave, we really think about, okay, what do we do even in the months and years to come thereafter? So we've also created a policy around childcare support. So of course, when it comes to childcare support, it's really, up to two things. First of all, is childcare available? And then secondly, it's about flexibility and really offering parents the flexibility to be able to manage their time. This is quite a challenge for us in the manufacturing industry because you can't really have flexible time for most of the workers in our industry. But it is something that we are striving to put in place, and we're trying to work with other manufacturing organizations to try to put that in place as well. And in terms of childcare support, we it's something that we're still working on. And the way that we see it at the moment, you could have, depending on the situation, childcare support within the facility or childcare support provided close by to the facilities as well. So that's how we sort of look at things at the moment. But obviously a lot of room for us to grow and a lot of room for us to learn more from our colleagues as well. But what I'd like to do now is maybe hand over to Jerry to hear, your perspective as well on the topic.
Yeah, thank you, Sid. I don't know if you guys ever watched the video produced by Gillette, where the name of the video is "The Best a Man Can Be." And at the end of the video, they said, because the boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow. And for me, this sentence sums it all up. As Anja said, if we need to become the new role model. So we, as men, we need to become role models to our little brother to show them the way they should act and be in this society. Because for a long time, we were educating girls while boys also had to be re-educated. It's sometimes scary to see all the received ideas that boys already have at such a young age, and it has a lot of influence on the way they image their relationship with the girls. Most of the time, they only see domination. But we also have very benevolent young boys, and for me, this little flame must be nourished in them and we should make it grow so that they can contaminate their others' comrades. And that's what we do at the Donor Movement during the school tours that we are having, where we tackle basic subjects. Our methodology is not to give them directives and letting them know that you should do this or you should act like that. No. What we do is we create situations that we experience every day. And with the help of a gender switch exercise, we let them themselves identify what does not seem normal. And we ask them to propose solutions to remediate. And what is funny is at the end of the exercise, they always describe to us more egalitarian societies. And most of the time, the boys take commitment to participate to housework, for example, and be more attentive and watching on the way they treat women. And it's really important to understand that the educate young boys will help them be better, not be better men, but will help them to become the men the men we expect them to become tomorrow, so we could have egalitarian societies. And I just want to ask Rebecca if she could share with us a personal insight on her work-life expectation in male domination finance industry.
For sure, Jerry, and I couldn't agree more with everyone here. It's important to us to be our role model. And I just got like 3 things that I can see working at B3 The first one, it's important to understand where you are and face it, because if you don't have awareness, we can change it. But looking at the bright side, I must say that, for instance, a World Federation of Exchanges published a list of women in finance. So this is for the first time, so this is very nice to see there has a movement going on. And also it's something that we do ring the bell for gender equality. And it starts in 2015. We have like a movement named Sustainable Stock Exchanges, who invited all the stock exchanges so do the ring the bell to raise awareness about gender equality. And in the beginning was less than 10 participated, and now it's more than 100. So we see great movements, but one step at a time, because, for example, B3's Women Mentorship Program was only possible because B3 started a diversity and inclusion strategy since 2017. So sometimes we have to build connections first, discuss the issue, and then suggest new approaches. So that's the importance to us to be this role model. And most of all, respect. It's clear to us here that gender equality is something that is obvious and we need to follow. It's already proven that it's better for economy, for social and environmental spheres, but it isn't normal yet, and we know this. But we need to be our own examples and breaking inconscious bias so we can move forward, but with respect of others who didn't get the message yet. And Anya, I would love to know what you hear about it.
Well, I think there are some positive aspects to some of the negatives that you all described, and that is we do see a new type of culture on the rise, one that no longer requires the binary thinking, where people have a work and a life persona, but where one can bring their whole self to work, and where corporate, personal, and societal goals are increasingly interconnected. And I think that COVID has only increased and accelerated that trend, where you see that leaders become more human, show vulnerability, and show care for personal priorities of themselves as well as of their employees. And that is really important. As Sid earlier said, you need to have those people that show how it's done, and that you can be that approachable, personable, and vulnerable manager, employer, team member, colleague. And that takes out the pressure for those that don't have the self-confidence to say, I'm going to go on paternity leave, because what will my friends say? What will the others say if I do that? And so it's good that we see those first trends, and we see that especially young people are demanding more and more organizations to balance priorities and give them that freedom and choice to have more than just a work life. And with that, I'll hand over to Salam again to wrap up.
Thank you so much, Anya. And I need actually to wrap up because we've gone a little bit past the time. Thank you so much for being here, for inspiring our audiences. And I think you just you closed this session actually perfectly by mentioning your tips to our audience. So I would like to thank you. After this very inspirational conversation with our panelists, I would like the audience actually to go on another journey with a traveler, just a non-traditional traveler. So please, our audience, watch the conversation with Alyssa, who is a young person from the United States aspiring to become an astronaut. So watch that with me. All right. Hi, Alyssa. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good.
Well, it's a great honor and, of course, a pleasure to be here with you today for this fireside chat. So I was reading your biography, and it's really wonderful what you've been able to do. First, as a woman, as a young female, and second, at a very young age. So at the age of 19 already, you've been breaking glass ceilings, inspiring our audience. And I think that's the main reason you're also here today. I would love it for you if you can give an introduction of yourself, and then let me and let the audience know what is your goal actually, and what kind of challenges do you fear you might face, especially that, just as I mentioned, you're a young female. So would you like to go?
Yeah, I mean, totally. So for me, I am an aspiring astronaut. I've been working on this ever since I was young. I'm pretty much building a resume to eventually apply to the astronaut selection process. So I'm currently studying astrobiology in hopes of being an astronaut candidate one day. So that's obviously the goal. Another huge goal of mine is being able to inspire other kids and girls to go into STEM and really just be a part of the community, just because I think it's really amazing. I think there have been a lot of great strides in terms of getting more girls involved in the STEM and space industries, but there's definitely a lot more work to be done. It takes tens of thousands of people to send one astronaut into space. And so it's much more than just getting more female astronauts. We want more females across all of those jobs. So that's really what I think the next steps are.
I co-founded Changemakers, a startup to reduce the gender gap in STEM fields, because I understand the huge issue of STEM being a male-dominant field. For you, being an astronaut, I don't really know what the journey has been for you, and I'm very curious to hear more. But also, aside from that, or besides that, actually, what would you say to girls to encourage them not just to follow your path, but to encourage them to thrive in STEM if that's what they want?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, when I first got interested in space, when I was really young, obviously I had no idea it was a male-dominated field. I was just interested in space because it sounded cool. But throughout a lot of the different stuff that I've done, obviously I've realized it's very male-dominated. Even at my university now, we're a very STEM space-oriented university. So we're really male-dominated in that sense. I think it's 70% male to 30% female. So definitely it's really quite a large gap. And so it's definitely been a little bit difficult in terms of going after some of this stuff. But I do think that although it is male dominated, the females that you do meet are so strong and so inspiring, and you just kind of bond together. So many of the females that are in the space industry or that I've met have been so amazing to kind of just grab me along and continue to help me with anything that I can. So I think that all the females who are in this field are really encouraging, and we're all just trying to help each other get through it. But yeah, I definitely would say to any other, girls who are interested in going into this, there's a lot of different stuff that needs to be figured out. I mean, obviously you need to figure out what kind of dream you have, what you want to do. The next steps are really learning to look for some of those opportunities, look in your local area, see if you can find something. It could be even something as small like at your school, maybe a club, things like that can really make a difference. Also be vocal about your dreams and about your goals. Don't be afraid to tell people what you want to do, especially within space and science. We're always wanting more people involved. We always want more of you. So we will do whatever we can to help support you and help get you to that point. And so really don't be afraid, because you never know who someone knows. Also, I think having some sort of support system is really important, whether it's a parent, a friend, a teacher, at least someone saying, oh, that's really awesome what you did. Or maybe they're helping you look for opportunities, or maybe they're just constantly telling you that your dream is achievable. Any of those little moments can make a really big impact. So I think it's really important to have at least one person who's supporting you. For me, it was my dad, but definitely it doesn't have to be. It can also be anyone in your life that you feel can really help you achieve your dreams. But I know that you're also really active in supporting STEM education, as I am. It's pretty important to most people in the STEM industry. But yeah, really important for getting women involved in STEM. So what are some of your key learnings?
Yes, well, it's really hard to say anything after your inspirational insights, really, to be honest. I totally agree with you that you need to have this support network, support system, actually. And I would emphasize on the importance of seeking opportunities, exploring them. So my key learnings, well, one of them is that sometimes girls are afraid to take this step, the first step. But what I noticed really through my past experiences is that when this first step is taken, everything else becomes really easy. So I learned that giving opportunities is really, really important. And as a female, it's very important that female also provide these opportunities to males. So just like you mentioned, actually, you mentioned that your dad was your really kind of biggest fan or supporter. It also has been men also in my life who supported me and who took me by the hand to achieve things. But I think what's more also, not what's more important, but what's very important is that we also have these kind of role models. This is one also of the key learnings. Success and inspiration is very contagious. So we need to find these people who look like us, who had the same conditions, circumstances, and who were able to thrive. That's also what give us a more kind of a motivation to thrive even more. Speaking about role models and mentorship, did you have any mentorship engagement? What kind of role did mentorship play for you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely mentorship was something that was pretty important, especially when I was first getting started, because the typical route of astronauts to this day has kind of just been, they went along their careers. One day they said, oh, hey, I kind of meet the requirements of an astronaut. Why not apply? And that's usually how most of the astronauts became astronauts. But coming from like a different perspective of having the mentality of wanting to be an astronaut from the beginning and do what you can to get to that point, because astronaut really isn't a career, it's a destination. And so you have to have a job to apply as an astronaut. So I definitely looked for a lot of mentorship early on, just like little tips and tricks that maybe would be helpful in the selection process. You know, what is some things I can do to stand out on my resume? You know, how can I make myself look better eventually in the long run? And so having mentors tell me about their experiences, you know, whether it was previous astronauts hearing their stories, or maybe people who work in the industry. So I definitely would say mentorship was really, really huge. And so I couldn't be where I am, you know, without all those like tips from other people. But I'd like to hear from you if you have like one female leader that has really impacted or inspired you, because I do think that we all kind of have someone that we kind of cling to who really keeps us going.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Well, it's really hard to name one female. It's always, I think, hard to name one thing, one person who you look up to. Of course, I have a lot of people whom I look up to, because in every person I find something. But if I mention, of course, one person, I would say my mom, my aunt, and my grandma. So to me, they formulate one person, and they really taught me that determination and faith are key components and key elements for success and for thriving a better future. So yeah, I think that would be my answer. And actually, Alyssa, coming closer to the end of this conversation, there's one last thing that I'm very, very curious about, and that would be, so on Earth, we have a lot of stereotypes. We have a lot of taboos, things that people don't really talk about, but females in specific don't even mention. Like say religion, sex, periods, for example, because I can imagine that in the aerospace industry, you're encountering many of these stereotypes and taboos. So what kind of issues do you probably encounter that we might not even think about?
Yeah, that's a really great point. You know, it kind of comes along with kind of a funny story, actually. But our first, you know, here in the US, when we sent our first female astronaut up to space, her name was Sally Ride. She was our first female astronaut, really exciting. But they were actually planning on sending menstrual products, a bunch of tampons up. And so to help her, you know, just in case something happened on the mission, and she may have been on her period for the mission, something like that. But all the engineers at NASA, obviously most of them being men, just because especially at that time, it was even more male dominated in the field. So they asked her if 100 tampons would be enough for the mission. And everyone just kind of like laughed, and they were like, 100 tampons, like it's a week. Like she's only going to be up there a week. Like it's not something crazy. It's not too long of a mission. So it's just really funny to like see that distance to where all of these male engineers just really had no idea, you know, how much products to send or what would be sufficient or what wouldn't. And so we definitely progressed a little bit from there. But I mean, I do think that there have been, you know, a few stereotypes along the way that we've kind of learned to deal with within the space industry. Obviously, there's still stuff to come, you know, as the space industry is always changing, you know, especially coming up with the ideas of space tourism. And we have a lot more everyday people going to space. You know, what kind of changes does that invoke once we start sending a whole lot of people to space rather than just a few? But yeah, there's definitely been a few along the way. But I definitely think the space industry has constantly been trying to learn and adapt as it progresses.
Well, I think that's a perfect statement to kind of wrap up with. I think we've definitely been been making some progress on Earth, in space, and I think that's exactly what we need, and that's exactly what people like us, either young people, but also the older generation who's supporting these movements, who's supporting these movements. So let's hope that we keep inspiring people to come to inspire the coming generation, and let's hope you're doing the amazing things you're doing.
Thank you so much, Salam, Elisa, and all the panelists for teaching us a brand new way to explore the leadership universe.